This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikay. Radio One.
I told you yesterday one of the pioneers of English news and current affairs television is going to be in studio, and here he is. Rohit Gandhi is editor-in-chief, English news and current affairs at Zee Media Corporation Limited, and close to 2 years now in New Delhi. He's done what he set out to do, which is set up a brand new English television channel. I'm really happy to see you because you believe in the power of radio, don't you? And you've been a radio broadcaster yourself, and that gladdens the cockles of my heart, Rohit. Welcome to the show. Yeah.
Thank you, Rishi.
This is beautiful. The need of another news channel. There are a few existing. Why WION?
Very different genre. What we see on television today is what we call talking heads, literally. People brought into the studio, come, talk, go. There isn't really the television news that we envisaged when we started out. Television news that will be capturing things on the ground, getting out there, whether it's within the region in South Asia or the rest of the world. What we hear from the rest of the world is information that's fed to us either from the West or it's fed to us from the Middle East or Russia or even China, but nothing out of South Asia where we can really see things from our eyes. So if you saw the story coming out from yesterday out of Syria, all the Western media pretty much was telling the American side of things, of how things need to be handled. But the reality on the ground is a lot of people are fighting ISIS and not Assad. But the Western media wouldn't report that. So one of the Canadian journalists came out and started talking about how a large part of the Western media was lying. Similarly, South Asia does not have to be left out of the whole mix of things. So we must be able to, put out a perspective out of South Asia. We know what's happening everywhere in the world, including inside South Asia. We need a neutral voice. We need a balanced voice. We need an unbiased voice. And I think at many levels that unbiased voice is missing. There are more opinions than really news.
And it's not just pure news and current affairs we're talking about. There is variety here. There's a bit of lifestyle, human stories. Talk about expanding your ambit or your umbrella.
Very important. What we see is just political news. People are tired. People don't want to hear one more politician, what he's doing today, or what kind of a fight he had inside his family or his party. People want to get out and really experience stories. What's happening on the ground? What's happening with our environment? What's happening with our energy? What's happening with how we relate to the region, the rest of the world, our wildlife? I think people want to hear about the challenges of the world. But at the same time, people want to hear real stories. People don't want to hear what happened inside a small little political party. That's not the focus. I think news seemed to have gone astray. It started out 25 years ago very well, but certainly it took a very different direction.
And obviously, you're going to make sure that it's easy to consume. Because a lot of the stuff that I see on news channels these days is just overwhelming, I wish it was just simplified and brought down to the base to brass tacks, as it were.
Yeah, and the idea also is to, let people speak on your network. You're not calling people to your network to slam them down. You're calling people to understand their perspective. You're calling great voices so that you can hear their perspective. If you knew everything as a journalist, then the rest of the world didn't need anybody else other than just that journalist. I think the idea is to make sure we bring people who can give you perspective. And otherwise, just one journalist can run this whole country, and you need nobody else to run this country.
Rohit Gandhi, editor-in-chief, English news and current affairs at Zee Media Corp. This is WION. We're talking about Enrique Iglesias' Escape, 10:07 live. My name is Hrishikay. Enrique Iglesias' Escape at 10:10. Rohit Gandhi is in studio. He's editor-in-chief at the DNA, the newspaper, as well as at WION. Rakesh Anand Bakshi on Twitter. Glad you featured Rohit Gandhi, a journalist without borders and blinders, bringing us some perspective. You should play Radio Gaga for him. Yeah, I should. He believes in radio so much. We're going to get that on the airwaves, okay, Rakesh? More conversation with a man who's redefining news.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikay.
This is fascinating. The fact that you integrate news stories. I mean, it is one world, isn't it? And here are you, amalgamating print and television and now radio, which is fascinating. You just told me off the mic that you're going to get a full-fledged radio news channel on the airwaves, digitally speaking. So talk about that. These are exciting times that we live in.
The whole scenario around the world we're seeing is a lot of fake news, a lot of news which you can't verify. And that in itself is a big challenge for journalists like us. Open your Twitter and there is some other information coming out. You open a television channel and there is some other information coming out. You open a newspaper and there is something else. There isn't the congruity, if you want to, so to say. So the idea is to take a piece of information, make sure it goes through proper checks and balances and reaches those multiple mediums. Wherever you want to consume it, you'll get the information in different forms. And that's exactly what multimedia can help us doing. You can bring news in different forms. Consumption is in different fashion, whether you're on a phone, traveling, whether you're even on radio for that matter. So being able to then verify information and have the people behind it, because at the end of the day, we're in a business which needs verification by people. It cannot be all done by machines. But at the same time, they're all very, very interconnected mediums.
And you are big on technology, which is what I want you to talk about and spend some time on, and some of the remarkable stuff that you've done. Not just using technology, but stuff on the ground about the achievements so far.
Technology is a big one. At the end of the day, we have to use technology. We put out something called My Story. It is a citizen journalism app. We want people to interact with us. We want people to tell us things on the ground. We want to be able to verify it. So we've created an app just for people to upload material so that they can put their word out. We will still moderate it. We are not going to be an open platform where you can use it for slander or libel or defamation. But we will verify that information, but we want to interact with you. We want to be able to tell the stories which are important to you, not stories which are just important to us as journalists. Sometimes we cannot have 1.3 billion people, but there are 1.3 billion people out here in India who actually can bring us that information. And so things like that, or our journalists to be able to go live anytime, anywhere through television, which each one of them carries a live device.
Well, mind you, this man has incredible credentials. Co-producer, developer of a new series for the Oprah Winfrey Network, producer of a one-hour documentary on Cricket 30/30, a popular TV film series on ESPN, co-producer of Culture Shock, a new series developed for the Oprah Winfrey Network, and of course, field producer of Afghan Warrior, an Emmy Award-winning one-hour documentary on the political situation in Afghanistan. I will tell you more about Rohit Gandhi as we go by. Rakesh Anand Bakshi, while he was speaking, I was busy on my keyboard pulling up your song, man. Radio Gaga, more conversation. I'll post this on WION and a whole lot more. It's 10:14. My name is Hrishikay.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikay.
Radio One.
I have just been gaping open-mouthed at Rohit Gandhi, editor-in-chief at WION, editor-in-chief at DNA, in studio talking about his life and times. Now, this is fascinating. As an investigative journalist, you were on the front line in Waziristan, Saddam's capture, the fall of Kabul. Just a bit of a rewind and take me through the war zone. Couldn't have been easy.
It isn't an easy journey for many. The war zones are a very, very tough place for a lot of people. And just to, give you a bit of background, my master's research is in post-traumatic stress and journalists who cover war zones and disasters. The rate of PTSD is higher than even combatants. And just to go through the war zones, 2001, we were there in Kandahar with the Taliban when they were in place. We'd gone and spent time with them. Then as the war began to unfold in the north, we spent about 3.5 months going frontline to frontline in Afghanistan until Kabul fell. So that was a fairly tough time. Then in Iraq, we were there before Saddam got captured, and then we were there on the day of the capture. And we could see the jubilation on the streets. And a lot of people, and even myself, was asking that question, whether people really wanted Saddam to go or not. And it's still being raised that, oh my God, but Saddam was a better ruler than what we see today. But he was a dictator. He had 160 palaces, and people were scared of even living. He would literally get anybody picked up. So when people begin talking about the challenges of the world, until you see it from the ground, on the ground, don't make judgment. It's not easy. And that's why you need people out there to going out and understanding, and not biased voices, unbiased voices.
You're just 6 months old, and I mean WION. Already some remarkable stories. There are things that you're proud of. Tell us about that, and then go on to talk about your editorial team and their strengths in particular. Obviously, with a man like you at the helm, You're obviously, very nitpicky and justifiably so. Yeah.
The editorial team is everything. Honestly, I am reduced to being able to, really putting them together, but they are the strength. The team is an international team. There are all kinds of citizens of all parts of the world. I have somebody who spent 3 years. So she's a woman who spent 3 years in Afghanistan on the front lines. Amanda Clark. I have Anchal Vora, who's gone to many, many countries of the world. I have a Giles Gibson who just did a story on the Chinese military vehicles inside Afghanistan. I have another, Daniele Pagani. He's Italian. He spent 2.5 months in Mosul. He's just come back a week and a half ago. He went again frontline to frontline as he captured news. It's a very, very international group of people. Bring a completely balanced, neutral, unbiased, and that is what makes this great team. And then we have a great set of people who understand television, who do television, but our journalists are out there in the front lines telling you the story ground up.
Essentials of the programming. I noticed that there are some incredible shows. There's Democracy, Dictatorship, Take It Out. Just lead us through that, please.
Democracy and Dictatorship was one of the shows closest to my heart because I've spent most of my life in democracies and dictatorships. And, only when you go through those regimes you realize, the systems you realize, the value they bring to our society. And obviously, from my perspective, democracy certainly stands out as a system more, closer to us, closer to our understanding of able to voice our opinions, live in a place where we build ground up. So it was a show that I wanted to build, and I was very happy to be able to build it here. We take issues, like yesterday I was doing a series of interviews on water and how it's a right. The Tech It Out show is another great one. We get out to talking about great technology. Then we have a show on the motors, on the cars, and all the engines that the world makes. We also concentrate heavily on environment. We partnered with Al Gore, and we did a series day before yesterday called 24 Hours of Reality.
Wow.
This was 24 hours of live from all over the world, where we were talking about our challenges of the environment. The air quality has been a big, big issue. So we certainly concentrate on issues that impact us, our health, which is the most important. It doesn't matter what happened to a political party tomorrow morning, but what does matter is, will you be able to live a healthy life, or will you have asthma, and will you have issues with your existence? So the idea for a news information channel is to provide you information that's important for you, not garbage that doesn't make any sense to you.
Mm-hmm. And WION Wallet obviously is a business show that you're really proud of, and sport, you got to throw some sport in the mix.
Absolutely, and then that's why we are civilizations. We go beyond. We don't just stay on the basics. We understand sports a great way of societies to interact, and certainly we've concentrated on that. We want to talk about people who may have disabilities and still can play sport. We want to get there. Also, WION Wallet is important. What is important to an average man looking at a business show? Everybody does not understand the numbers the way a business channel sometimes put it out. So this is a show aimed at people who can comprehend. Even the budget is coming out in the next few weeks. We are going to make the budget comprehensible for an average human being. We're not just going to put tickers and numbers, because it makes no sense most of the time.
WION, DNA and more. Editor-in-Chief here, Rohit Gandhi. Paul Young, back from the 80s. Every time you go away, my name is Hrishikay. Pictures of Rohit on Twitter at HRISHIKY, on Facebook at facebook.com/radio1.mum. Also at HRISHIKY on Facebook. You could react, ask questions, or pass comments on those social networking platforms. One space your comment and name to 53650. 53650 is the in-studio SMS line. 1028 live. I'm Hrishikay. The wonderful Rohit Gandhi. Here he is, editor-in-chief at DNA, editor-in-chief at WION, talking about his life and times. I have a question for you. I mean, here's America, which got everything wrong, the American media, talking about how Hillary would win the election, and ultimately Trump, throws his trump card. In India, we saw a bit of that happening in New Delhi. The second time around, it was a bit of a surprise. There is a perception that the media doesn't have its finger on the pulse And people like you and me are constantly questioned, aren't we? And you obviously have that on the top of your mind as far as WION is concerned, now that it's a new baby that you've launched. Tackling the reality on the ground and reflecting that as a mirror. What is the gap that we need to address as the media? Why aren't we getting it right?
So about 6 months ago, I wrote a piece in DNA called Stance. And it was about how popular Trump was and how India was to benefit if Trump came to power. When I was writing that piece, one of the journalists in my own newsroom was fighting with me as I was writing that piece. And, I'm very open to the discussion. I always keep a newsroom open. I want to keep a newsroom healthy. It is not diktats that you put out in a newsroom. But at the same time, I think what's important is for journalists to go out and meet people and understand what's happening on the ground. And that's missing from journalism today. You go from a political party to a corporate party and you come back home and that is the end of it. And that missing link is important. Journalists need to get out, and that's something people have to realize. You cannot run a whole website, which is a news website with 12 people, and think you have a journalistic organization. If you want to have a journalistic organization, have it like I would say, for example, Z Media. We are about 2,000 people who are out there bringing you information. We don't have your blinkers on. Be open to the idea that it may not be directly in line with who you are as an individual. But if something's happening on the ground, recognize that as news and say, okay, well, I may not agree with this, but this is what's going to happen.
Question from Nadia on Twitter. Rohit Gandhi, WION does a political satire show? Question. More on that, question mark. Heard there's live music on it. Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
Wow,
we
tell us a bit about
live
that.
music on it. We have a band in from Goa.
That's quite cool.
Who performs on the political satire show. It's called The World Deconstructed.
So important to have a sense of humor, isn't it? I mean, in India, we just take ourselves so seriously.
Absolutely. And, just being able to, laugh about things, what's going on the ground. You got to take different perspectives on a story. And sometimes news will happen the way it happens. For example, Trump came to power. Some of those I may not agree with Trump entirely. Sure. There'll be a lot of things I may not like about Trump. But at the same time, he's come to power. And at the same time, for what he does, there is a lot of satire and humor about it. So, hey, let's, take it on as it comes.
A little more about this wonderful man, Rohit Gandhi, producer, correspondent of a 30-minute PBS documentary targeting the Taliban, based on exclusive frontline access to the Pakistan military's offensive against the Taliban in Waziristan. He is also co-producer of On Thin Ice and Waterworld, a 2-part PBS documentary series on climate change, and of course producer-correspondent of the UN Environment Program's Breathing Hope into Kabul, a story about Afghanistan's environmental challenges. We're going to come back and I'm going to ask him about Malala Yousafzai. There's a bit of an interesting take on that. It's Avril Lavigne, Skater Boy, 10:36. My name is Hrishikay.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikay.
Radio One.
The incredible Rohit Gandhi in the studio was running through his incredible credentials. And here's a man who's been producer video audio packages for festivities marking the UN's World Environment Day in New Delhi in 2011, co-producer of the Emmy-nominated Who Cares About the Girls? Slave Girls of India, an hour-long investigative documentary about girl-child trafficking for Nat Geo, field producer of 4 mini-documentaries for Dan Rather on HIV drug access, for the underprivileged, religious, prostitution, caste discrimination, and globalization of information technology. I mean, this is a man who's had a stellar career. Now he's editor-in-chief at DNA as well as WION. He was just showing me some cool stuff that his app is doing. Got to talk about Malala. Her first ever TV interview was with you, and subsequently you did a lot of other stuff with her on television. Fascinating girl, isn't she?
She was, and she is. I met her first in 2009. I was doing a documentary about how the Pakistani army was able to fight Radio Mullah, a man who'd taken over the Swat Valley, and he'd promised an Islamic, great nation to the people of Swat. They almost came to war with the Pakistani military and threw the Pakistani military out of the Swat area and decided to establish an Islamic republic. When that got established, Radio Mullah and his Taliban started killing people, started torturing people, stopped education for girls. And that's when people realized that Sharia, so to say, quote unquote, was not the way for them to go. So I went back in to Swat a couple of times, and I met Malala on all of my trips. And I did sit-down interviews with her because she was on the front lines, going and hiding to her father's school to study. And so certainly a very interesting time to see a region go through what it did and how they recovered back from that. You know, Swat is part of the rest of Pakistan today. But certainly it went through a very challenging time as it went towards adopting Sharia, which sometimes I've heard from many places. There's a great way to go for an Islamic area.
Mm-hmm. Well, you really want and are on the way to becoming the voice of South Asia. And it's so important, and I want to get that point across. It's so important for us to be not inclusive in terms of looking inward all the time, which is what your lesson from dictatorships is. They're so inward, and we've got to have an outward approach, almost like, you know, an inverted pyramid. And that is your aim with WION, isn't it?
Absolutely. And World is One News, the news channel, needs to be looking at the world as our oyster. We cannot be that insular nation. We cannot be that insular region. This part of the world has never been insular in its history. Our people have traveled everywhere. Our people have been everywhere, taking ships around the world and getting there. And that's why we became the culture we became. We've assimilated well. And as long as we stay on that path, we will become the force of the world. But if you don't, and you continuously just start looking inward into your small village, and it's not like you ignore your village, but you still get lessons from the rest of the world. And I think that'll be a good way for South Asia to be. And that's why this channel is aligned to talking about policy and then talking about issues on the ground. And what
fascinating
impacts us.
stuff that you did last night on the Syria attack, you know, some eye-openers there.
Absolutely. And, you know, we our journalist was there in Mosul. And then we had an interview, a sit-down interview with the PKK head. Now, this group was pointed as the one who had targeted Turkey in the attack. And this group had said they had nothing to do with this attack. But obviously, Turkey was trying to kill this group. These Kurds aren't allowed to study their own language inside Turkey. And all they're asking for is not independence. They're saying, let us just study. Let us have a proper voting pattern. Let us be able to elect our leaders. And that's not possible for them. You know, many times people look at these locations and say, oh my God, you need an independence because you have a certain religion. But that's not what you need. What you need is democratic rights. As long as you have those democratic rights, you can create your world. But these people don't have it. And that's why they certainly have been asking for an autonomous region right within Turkey.
Pooja Garg, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the playlist and the conversation. Lovely saying good morning. Riddhi Jain, good morning. Dips Chaudhary, thank you very much. And I'm glad you enjoyed the property show. And immediately after that, this wonderful session with Rohit Gandhi. Full part to you, to WION, to DNA, from us at 94.3 Radio 1. And go change the world.
Thank you, Rishi. Thanks very much. Great to be here.
Donna Lewis, I love you always forever. My name is Hrishikay. It's 10:51 live.